Welcome to the Spring Summit, and I have the privilege of being with a really wise man, and you're going to just get so much from this interview. So I'm going to start and ask, why do you have the passion about what you do?
Okay. Many years ago, I had a client, he's a millionaire. And he says to me, Cecil, do you have an idea how much money you make us? I said, what are you talking about? So he asked me some questions. He said, well, how long have you been in business? I said, 20 years. At that time, I said, I said, how many clients have you had? He said, probably 1,500. He says, okay. So he goes away. He comes back Cindy and he says to me, Cecil McIntosh, your clients collectively have made $100 million. And then he paused without talking about making money. That's why I do what I do, because I see too many entrepreneurs rushing around, hustling, burnt out, trying to make money. And when he said that to me, I said, oh, is that what I'm doing? That what lights me up to let you know there is another way where you can live and where you can have fun. But it's not like every weekend you got to be running here and running there. You're always rushing. You're always in a hurry. There's no, and in some cases, the self-care is not taken care of. There's all this rushing. So when I discovered that, that's why I enjoy doing, because when you work with me, you discover that that's all unnecessary. It's totally unnecessary, but that's just another perspective. And you might say, well, Cecil, that you're full of hot air. Maybe it's just another perspective. You have one perspective. Here's another perspective. And when you get to know me, you realize, oh, this is actually possible.
Well, I think that's a wonderful way that people can kind of change their perspective, because we can get busy, but it doesn't mean we're actually accomplishing anything.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So what is the most important thing to you?
The most important thing for me is that you understand that everything happens on the inside. That's the magic. We are conditioned to look on the outside for everything, right? Mm-hmm. And when we look on the outside, we get caught up on the outside. So, for example, how many entrepreneurs out there who have bought all these different products, they don't use them, right? So we always looking for the next best thing. And you're in this class and this course, but you're not doing anything. So the thing that's important is to understand, no. There's a way to do that. You need to come inside, because when you come inside, it's a whole different perspective, and you can, I call it pausing. I call it the Bayesian pause. When you pause and you come inside, that's like the pause is like, in my opinion, is the divine, where you're in that space of nothingness. And in that space of nothingness is when you begin to get messages. And if you listen to those messages, that's how beautiful life is. Everything happens.
Wow. I think that's the messages are part of discernment, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what is your life like now that you are such mature human soul?
Well, right now, my life is marvelous. I have a amazing wife. We dance. We like dancing Latin, bachata, and salsa. I have 5 grandchildren. I have 4 children. I like to go. We are San Antonio Spurs fans, basketball fans. We like to travel. And I am a people watcher. I like to watch people. I like to observe people. I like to cook. I like to garden. That's what I like to do. But it was not always like this. Mm-hmm. I was very successful in sales. And because I was told that I'm a black man and I wouldn't make it in sales, I was hell-bent to prove everybody wrong. And I did. I blazed the trail. I had everything I wanted. All the material stuff. The house, the car, the custom-made clothes, the works. But in that journey, I neglected my relationship. Well, there was not much in relationship anyway, but I neglected my relationship. However, I have 2 beautiful daughters from that relationship. So let's not get negative here, right? And then I should say I had two significant catastrophes in my life. The first one was I was divorced same week, and then I went bankrupt. So there was 2 major significant catastrophes in my life. Now, when I went to the lawyer to sign the divorce papers, I was in pain and discomfort and I'm miserable. I'm pissed off because I made all this money. Now I don't have anything. I don't have a penny to my name. And I wasn't too happy about that. However, as I took the pen from the lawyer to sign the document, I realized at that moment there was a silence. I've never really experienced it before. And then I asked, well, what do I do now? And it says, go get therapy. And I did. But I still had another problem. I had chronic lower back pain. So this little voice said, Cecil, your grandma in Barbados was your spiritual teacher and your business teacher. And you came to Canada and ignored her teachings and said, she didn't go to no university. And you ignored everything she taught you. Now you have a chronic lower back pain. Here's the deal. Open your home, teach what you know, and the back pain will disappear within 24 hours. I said, deal. I did. And my back, I haven't had a back pain since then. And the process over the last 30 years is now called the Business Life Balancer. And like people, when I opened my home, people came, I was in the basement apartment. I left there, came someplace else. More people turn up. Didn't tell me, but they just turned up. So this is where I discovered that. That's where I teach what I teach. But everything came out of that. And the foundation of that is also about my grandma, right? These are the things, and a lot of things I'm teaching is what she taught me when she was coaching me in Barbados.
So you could say that you got wisdom from an elder.
Yes. That's
right.
that's a beautiful.
And now that you're an elder, you have made a roadmap for people.
Yes.
So that they can, basically inherit from you.
Yes.
What you inherited.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes. So what came out of the Business Life Balancer, there are actually 4 islands. There's a foundation. A foundation means that there's nothing, anything you do in life, you have to have a foundation. And it has to be a solid foundation. I explain to you in a second how our foundation is not very solid. So the first island is the foundation. The second island is reset and recalibrate. We've been programmed over the years to behave a certain way. So in the reset and recalibrate, I look at the programming and I wipe it all away. However, the reset is if you're doing things that are marvelous, we keep those and we enhance them. And the third step is realize your full potential. What that basically means is that now you discover there's another way to live. And it's wonderful. And things are flowing for you. And everything is magnificent. You're meeting people every day and they all connect. It's a beautiful connection. That and the foundation plus the reset and recalibrate and realize your true potential is what we call self-realization. That's when you discover who you really are, right? So today, I want to talk about the foundation because that's so critical for us. And in the foundation, it's best to tell a story. This lady, a very nice lady, somebody came to her home and said, can I have a cup of tea early in the morning? And she said, oh, yes. And she gives him the cup of tea. Then he's still in the house. He hasn't left. Lunchtime, he says, oh, I want Kentucky Fried Chicken. And she says, oh, I'll go to the store and get some for you. And he says, okay. Then this lady likes soap operas. So soap opera time, she goes to watch soap opera. He said, oh, no, you can't watch soap operas. So she said, okay. Then even though he wants whatever he wants for dinner, she says, okay, I'll cook that for you, chicken and whatever. And then when it's time to go to bed, she has a beautiful king-size bed. And he says to her, oh, no, you can't sleep in that bed. You have to sleep on the couch. And she says, no problem. Now, this scenario continues for 5 days, right? Whatever he says, she's doing it. On the 6th day, she says, get the fudge out of here. Because on the 6th day, she realized what was happening. So it's like, I was at a seminar once and I was it was a break and I asked to have a cup of tea because I don't drink coffee. And they gave me tea, but the tea was made from coffee water. So I had coffee water tea. And why is this important? It's important because that's the way we live our lives sometimes. We're supposed to get a nice warm water to put on the tea bag to have a tea, but we just comfortable having something that's mediocre. And we keep on doing that. And we wonder how come our life is the way it is. And what happens is we have all these thoughts. And these thoughts take us down a rabbit hole. We have one thought, well, I'm dumb. Then another thought is, how come I'm so dumb? And another thought. These thoughts take us down a rabbit hole. But the problem is we're down the rabbit hole. So we don't have any clarity and there's no foundation. That's where the problem is. There is no foundation on which to stand on. So I am going to give you, so when there's no foundation, there's chaos, right? And there's lack of clarity and then you're unable to slow down. But what you actually should be doing is you should stop being stressed out. You should stop feeling burnt out at the end of the day, and you should stop always putting others first. So I'm going to give you 4 tips to solve that problem. Here's the first tip. Stop running through the red light. So what happens is you drive in the car, you come up to the light turns orange and you slow down and hopefully you stop right before the white line. That's what you do driving the car. If you don't do that, you get yourself in a problem, create an accident. In our lives, we don't do that. We run through the red light on our mind. We're constantly running through the red light in our mind. So this is one of the steps you can take to get some clarity, to slow you down, to build a foundation. That's number one. The other one is, if I give you a 1,000-word document, and I say to you, Cindy, here's a 1,000-word document I want you to do something with. I want you to make some sense out of it. 1,000-word document with 1 period. What you have to do, you have to punctuate the document in order for it to make sense. So when we go through in our life, we need to punctuate our lives by pausing. And when you pause, that's when your life makes sense. If you're running through life all the time, there's no sense, there's no clarity, there's no nothing, because there's no pauses. And here's the secret. When you pause, in that moment where there's nothingness, that's the divine. We don't recognize that sometimes. The other thing is, another lady came to me, she said, Cecil, I have a problem with my 18-year-old son. He and I are not getting along very well. And I said, okay. I said, I want you to walk in his shoes. What I mean by that is, you just imagine that you walking in his shoes. And she did it. And I saw her later on. She said, Cecil, it works. I said, what are you talking about? Because I forgot what I told her. Because I walked in his shoes. And when I walked in his shoes, I can feel his pain. I can feel how mad he was at me. I can feel all those things I picked up from walking in his shoes. And what did you do? She says, I held a container for him, allowing him to be himself. And what happened? He says, he and I are the best of friends. Right? So if you have somebody's difficult, there's another way in which you can get some clarity in the foundation part of it. Instead of fighting and screaming and shouting, just walk in the shoes. So it takes that stress away from you. You don't be at burnout yet. And the most important thing in life is this. Anybody can tell you to do anything, whether it's gardening, right? Whether it's in nature, anybody can tell you anything. I'm of the opinion is that if you're told something, you need to journal. You need to get some evidence that what the person is telling you makes sense. And if it makes sense, then you do something about it. But if you don't journal, how do you know when you're going through life? Can you look back at some document and say, well, here's what I'm doing? You need to journal. And when you journal, you get the information. And you can either go get a coach or do what you want to do, but you journal so you have some evidence. The thing is, we are so much dependent on the outside and what people are saying. We don't have any evidence for ourselves about anything. So when you journal, so you're planting seeds and you journal and you realize, I planted the seeds this time and this crop grew nicely. I planted these another time and you realize, oh, what's the difference here? But you journal what you did, right? And then you realize, oh, that's what I did. You can now you don't have to go to anybody and ask what you did. You have the information to make the adjustment. So going forward, you would have a beautiful crop because you know what you're doing. But what we are doing in life, we don't have no idea what we just keep on going through the motions. So that's why I'm saying that's why I'm saying it's the foundation. But do you have any questions before I tied it together?
Well, I think what you just said, it's self-awareness. And with people using so much of the internet and really not paying attention to what they're doing, the handwriting, right? Writing things out helps you remember in a different way. And you're so right about gardens because I'm experimenting all the time, with different areas. Every area is a different microclimate.
Yeah.
And I want to know where the things that I'm planting will thrive, right? And what I did at what time, what kind of insects, I had to deal with, or however other stresses.
Yep.
Makes a difference. And it's the same thing for you as an individual. Is that correct?
That's right. It's universal. So I don't know how much more time I have. So
I just want you to talk because we're in such challenging times.
Okay.
And people, don't really feel that they have the resiliency. I talk to people that are fatigued all the time. And you talked about getting out of back pain, for example. I talk to a lot of people that have knee pain, back pain, all sorts of pain. So, do you want to speak to that for a minute?
Well, I'm gonna. That's a beautiful segue. Here's what I find really really fascinating. I'm gonna offend some people by saying this is that we don't love ourselves. When you love yourself, you behave differently. You don't fight with yourself. You don't resist. You go with the flow. So what's happening with people today is most people don't know what love is. They might not have experienced it. They don't know what it is. But the moment that you start to come from love, now see, the thing about love is not something you say, well, I love my mother, but I don't love my father. Or I love my brother, but I don't love my sister. And that's not the kind of love I'm talking about. Love is right across the board. You need to love everybody, right? When we come from that perspective where we start to love, and the other thing about love is not something that comes from the outside either. Love is something that comes from the inside. So when you're planting those plants, the people say, well, she has a green thumb or whatever. Yes, but she also comes from love, right? That's why everything flourishes, because it's from the love from inside. So the reason people are having trouble today is because there is such a big hurry, they can't stop and pause. And I think my perspective is that you should start from a perspective of starting in love. Whatever you do, you should start in love. So when you start in love, whatever you do will be done in love, right? And if you do everything in love, then it's so magical. There's a smile. You enjoy everything. There's no complaining, right? And you would say, but Cecil, things are happening in life. What am I supposed to do about it? That's the point. The problem you're having, because you're on the outside dealing with all the other stuff, and the inside is not, you're not visiting the inside, and therefore you don't even know what love is. I mean, you might not know what love is, but if you were to come inside and pause more often. I spoke to a lady this morning and she was saying I said, do me a favor, 3 minutes, pause for 3 minutes. Tell me how you feel. So, oh my goodness, that was magnificent. I said, well, take the other half an hour of a call off and go repeat the exercise. I report on the next call, we're going to see what does it feel like when you go inside more often. That's what it is, to going inside. And the love is a little bit more advanced. But the point is, inside is important. So whether it's gardening, no matter what you're doing. And that's the magic. That's the magic of it.
So I think that there's magic in nature,
Yep.
right? And this
Yep.
is back to nature,
Yes.
and forward to abundance. Now,
That's
I have
right.
a particular viewpoint of that, but when you hear those words, what does that bring up for you?
Say it again. Say it again.
Back to nature, forward to abundance.
Right. Beautiful. So back to nature is coming inside. That's the way I term it. So back to nature, let's go back to the way we used to do it naturally, right? Right? Forward to abundance. When you're back to nature, right, is when you're in love. When you're back to nature is when you are allowing life to happen. You're getting out of the way. You're not want to control anything. And that's where so you come inside and you're going forward while you're inside. You don't have to come outside to go forward. You see where I'm coming from? So you come inside, back to nature, forward while you're inside. So you don't have to come inside and go back outside. Everything is done from the inside out. And that's where it's magical.
Yeah, that is absolutely magic. And I just wanted to know if you had any particular habits or things you do in the spring, because this is springtime.
In the spring, I like to do a little bit of gardening, right? I like to do a bit of gardening. And I do a bit of, I look at what I have in my house that I don't need. Like I kind of get, I forget, there's a word for that. I go look.
Spring cleaning.
Yeah, spring cleaning. I look at what I'm not using, and I package it and I give it to somebody else that they can use. I think it's nice to to freshen up. So that's basically what I do in the spring. But while I'm doing it, I'm on the inside, right? I'm on the inside. I'm not on the outside doing it. That's where it's magical.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for your magical time. And I know that so many people are just ignoring themselves and becoming stressed because of that. And you really made that incredibly clear that it has to be a foundation.
Well,
Are there any last words?
yes, I have a gift for them. And it's called Pause to Prosper. And that's a free gift. And basically what it does, it gives you a bit of explanation as to why you need to pause. But also, you're allowed to have a chat with me if you feel it's necessary. So you can get a bit more information about, what you're doing, what you're not doing, what the issues are. It's like, well, this guy seems to be he's talking a lot of nonsense about going inside and letting things flow and the inside is like the divine. What the heck is he talking about? Well, and I'm out here having all these problems and all these things are happening. You gotta be crazy. Well, if that's your opinion, I welcome you to come and have a conversation. I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you. Because sometimes we get caught in our own way of looking at life and we don't have another perspective on it. And I believe is that everybody you meet is your messenger. Everybody you meet is sent to give you a gift. And when things are really tight or when things change, and so whether it's a government or whatever, things change, we complain. My whole thing is, how are you making the adjustment to change? Because when you understand that you are the change, and when you make the adjustment, it doesn't matter what change out there because it doesn't affect you. You can go with the flow. That's what nature does. Nature makes the adjustment. Nature don't go around complaining, right? There's a calamity. Everything gets, but nature have a way of bouncing back. That's the lesson we can learn from nature. Things happen, things change. Make your adjustment. You see a tree and the tree is growing one way and it's a problem. What did the tree grow? It shifts and goes another way. You look at nature, nature's teaching us all this stuff all day long. But are we paying attention? No.
And it's in paying attention that we can learn.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Wow. Those are fabulous words, but they're not just words. It's really coming into your body. And into your inner light.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for spending so much time with me.
Cindy,
and I really appreciate that you're going back to nature and forward to abundance.
And that's the only way to go, because guess what? Back to nature is inside, forward is forward. But they're both inside. We're not coming back outside.
Yeah.
We're inside. So thank you. It's my pleasure, Cindy, to have met you and to have spoken to you today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.